Hello and welcome to the Business of Business podcast. I'm Roy. You can find us, of course, at www.thebusinessofbusinesspodcast. We're also on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, and Spotify. So today, last week, a guest brought up some interesting points about digital marketing, and we were basically YouTube, and that's a forgotten channel that I don't take advantage of like I should. So reached out and was talking to Kyle Porter, who's with Guidepost Marketing, and asked him if he'd come on the show today and talk to us a little bit about digital marketing. So, Kyle, welcome to the show. First off,
Thanks for having me.
hey, you bet, you bet. Yeah, I've got so many questions here. You'll have to watch the time for us today. Make sure because I could talk for hours to you about this. So. I know a little bit of your history is that you own a martial arts studio for children. You were doing some digital marketing, digital advertising for yourself, and it kind of expanded to helping others. And yeah, why don't you just tell us a little bit about kind of how you got here, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, so I opened my business, my martial arts gym back in 2015, and I opened it because I had worked at martial arts gyms really since I was 14 or 15 years old, and had I felt like sort of earned my stripes and gotten to a place where I was capable of launching it on my own. So I did that, and I learned really quickly that I was great at doing the business that I was in. I was great at teaching the classes, great at, delivering these awesome experiences for my students. But when it came to actually filling the doors and getting people in the doors, when it was a brand new location, it was a real challenge for me. So it it was kind of this learning process where I learned through kind of a combination of online and offline efforts, community involvement, and in tandem with, a really solid social media strategy, and, frankly, just consuming hours and hours of YouTube content on how to build marketing campaigns, and, learning a lot from the people who put out a lot of good information, and just kind of synthesizing it to figure out what worked best for me. A lot of trial and error, and we ended up growing really, really fast. We did, in our first 2 years, we got to where we were at kind of a run rate of about $500,000 a year, which for a karate school is pretty
Wow.
substantial. We had,
Yeah.
we've got a couple hundred students, and we've got an after school program where we pick kids up from schools and, take them back to our facility on a bus, kind of like a daycare program. And, a
Okay.
lot of that is built on two things, really. One is the back of the relationships we have in our community with with our schools, our elementary schools. And then the other thing is just on the back of a really solid digital and social strategy. So that definitely is the kind of the crux of what's allowed us to get to this point. And then for me, it was, other people in my network that I was connecting with kind of in my role as the studio owner, and, parents of kids that I would teach. And they were saying, what are you doing to grow this business like this? And it just kind of evolved from there. And I've always been fascinated with words and with copywriting and with, persuasion, and just, helping people understand how you can solve their problems. So I started working with some local businesses on that, and have kind of expanded that. And, now have gotten to a place where I've worked with a couple of global brands, and, really help them clarify their messaging, communicate it in a digital platform, and, and ultimately grow their business.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and we don't want to discount that social network, the offline part, because I know a guy that basically he came into town fresh. And this has been a long time ago, but he opened up a taco store, and that's what he did: supported youth teams and really was in the community and built an awesome business. But what we want to talk about is that digital. I'll have to have you back sometime to talk about that in person, because that's
Sure.
it's very, very important, especially for the business that you're in, is that, you have to be out and be in the community. So we never want to discount that, even though we're talking more on the digital side.
Sure.
Um, one thing that when we had a previous conversation that you mentioned is that, when you first started this effort that, you were getting a lot of hits and a lot of activity. The bad thing was it was from 8-year-olds that don't pay the bills. So
That's right.
you tell us a little bit about that. I think the message, is patience, that when we do this, we have to have patience.
Definitely. And it's patience, and it's also understanding, kind of the full customer journey, and, understanding sort of how people interact with each other and how they interact with your business. So we put out our first ever ad on YouTube. And what we did is we targeted to kids videos, videos that kids were watching, whether it was unboxing videos where kids are unboxing toys. I mean, that's just a huge market in the, in that sort of YouTube space, or whether it's, kids watching other kids play Minecraft or Fortnite, or, whatever the kind of the games are of the day. So we were really specific about the videos that we targeted. And we were really specific about this geographic area because for us as a local business, I can get all the
Right.
views that I want, but if they're
Right.
coming from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and my studio's in Atlanta, Georgia, it doesn't really help me that much. So we're
Exactly.
we're real specific about where we targeted. And what we realized is that, these videos were getting this massive number of views, and we were excited about that, but it didn't translate to sales. It didn't translate to people actually coming in the door. And so, initially our thought was, well, that didn't work. It got us, it got us a lot of attention. It made a lot of noise. It, it rocked the boat a little bit, but in terms of actually moving the needle for the business, it didn't do anything. Well, then all of a sudden, over the course of the next 2 or 3 months, what ended up happening was we had these parents that started calling in, parents that started coming in, and they said, my kids saw your ad on YouTube and they won't stop talking about it. They keep saying, hey mom, bring me to the karate school, bring me to the place, and so we completely discounted the fact that there's another layer that has to happen in that interaction, where the kid sees the video, they see it over and over again, and they're showing it to their mom, because we put in stuff where kids are breaking boards and running across the mat and jumping high and kicking and flipping and that kind of stuff. And so it's stuff that they see, and anytime you're creating any kind of advertising campaign or any kind of marketing campaign, you want to present, no matter who you're presenting it to, kind of the final version. What, if marketing is kind of communicating this before and after transformation, you want to show kind of what the end of that transformation looks like. So when you've got these kids that are sitting there on their iPads and they're seeing these other kids that are out really living this adventure, that are having this great time, then they're going, I want that to be me. So they talk to mom and dad, and initially it's kind of like, no, you don't want to do that. But when it's persistent, then all of a sudden now it is making a really big difference in our business. And it's hard to quantify that kind of stuff. It's hard to quantify how many kids saw it and then showed their friend who's sitting next to them, and that kid, so it's really hard to say we spent, X number of dollars on YouTube ads and we signed up this many kids as a result of it, because it wasn't that straight path. And some of your digital marketing efforts are going to be that. Some, you throw money at Facebook ads, people click on them and they put in their name, phone number, and email address, and you call them and you can say, hey, look, this person came directly from this ad. But more often than not, particularly for local businesses, you need those 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 touch points where they see you on Facebook, they see your card out at the barbecue restaurant, they see your banner hanging on the baseball field, and and then they see you involved in the kids' school, and then they see you on YouTube, and then all of a sudden you're kind of this omnipresent entity where they go, well, shoot, if I'm going to do this thing, if I'm going to sign my kids up for karate, or if I'm going to, go get my hair cut at a barbershop, or if I'm going to go, order a wedding cake for my wedding, whatever your business does, all of a sudden you become the only option for those people, because, it's not just as simple as like, hey, I make wedding cakes, do you want one? It's, check out this wedding cake that I made, and check out, the haircut that I just did. And, all of a sudden you build this reputation where you're playing the long game rather than just this transactional back and forth.
Yeah. So like, trying to pick out the videos that you wanted to advertise, I guess you have a lot of, and I'm going to show my ignorance in this space, that is that like you sign up and they just plug you in where, or do you get to specify, hey, I like this video or this type, or how does that selection process go?
So what you can do is you can advertise on certain channels. So if there are creators on YouTube that have a lot of subscribers, a lot of followers, you can choose to advertise directly on those creators' channels.
Okay.
You can also target by people who are, kind of to zoom out a little bit more than that, you can target based on interest, so if you have, using that wedding cake company as an example, if you have people that are interested in bridal magazines and, honeymoon vacations and all those things, then you can start to target. And it's easy to do that on, because the YouTube ad interface is YouTube is owned by Google. So, it's connected to that ad interface that's through Google. So you're able to target by these keywords and things that people are searching for, as well as you could just say, hey, I'm in this location and I want to serve customers that are in this location. And so anybody who's here, because you just kind of want to have sort of more of a shotgun kind of strategy where you'll, sprinkle it out to everybody, or some combination. You say, hey, look, if the target audience is big enough, I'm looking for, motorcycle enthusiasts in Daytona Beach, Florida. You're going to have a pretty significant population there. So, it's kind of determining, do you want to target by interest or are you geographically constrained? And then at that point saying, what does that look like? And, and that's why with any client that I work with now, the first step, the very first thing I have them do before I do anything else is I say, who is it that we're talking to? Let's get really clear on who our customer is and get really clear on their pain points, get really clear on what they're looking for, what they need. How do they define success? How do they define failure? What are they afraid of? What are they searching for? All of those things play into how I'm going to target them, in a digital environment.
Yeah. So how did you do a lot of like A/B testing? Did you because you would think martial arts, maybe sports oriented type videos or something like that. So did you have to go through some trial and error to kind of narrow down the types of videos that you wanted to advertise on?
So for our business specifically, and I want to answer that question directly, but then also kind of tie it to the people who are going to be listening to this. For
Okay.
our business specifically as a martial arts school, we have really two customers that we have to serve. We have to serve the parent who's actually signing the check every month, and then we have to serve the kid who's actually the person on the mat taking the class.
Right.
So a lot of our marketing efforts, and again, it goes back to what platform are we on? When we're talking on Facebook, I'm not reaching any 8 to 12-year-olds. They're not there, and so when I'm on Facebook, when I'm on Instagram, then I'm talking to parents. And so I'm talking about things like giving your kid a place to belong, building a stronger future for your child, protecting them from bullies, defending themselves from strangers, improving focus, better grades, all those things that if I had that same message targeted to that 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old who's watching videos on YouTube, they don't care. They're not, they're not interested. If I sat down and I said, hey, I'd really like to talk to you about focus for the next 30 seconds, they'd say, yeah, I'd really like you not to,
I get my mom and dad to pay not to have that
conversation. Yeah. And so we have to be really, really careful about when we're talking to kids, and when we're showing the ads on, on something like YouTube where it's, a lot of it is going to be kids who are, watching videos. It's going to be, what does this feel like to be there? What does it feel like to be in class and to be punching targets and have your boxing gloves on and, and actually be kind of immersed in it, where that message doesn't really resonate as much with parents because they are more concerned with, is this going to make my kid more focused? Is it going to give them a good physical outlet? Is it going to teach them to protect themselves, teach them confidence, all those kinds of things. Right. And so, for us, again, going back to, and for really any business, it's who is it that's going to be purchasing and or using the product or service that you sell, and then what do they want? What does success look like for them? And then starting to paint that picture. And and on the other side, people, anytime we're advertising, anytime we're marketing, we have to be aware of the fact that people are either moving towards something or they're moving away from it. Right? They're either moving towards a future that they desire or away from a future that they don't want for themselves. And so with kids and parents, we have to strike that balance. And, to answer your question about like something like A/B testing, when we start saying the negative side of things, is your kid struggling in school? Is your kid getting bullied? Is your kid, all those things? they resonate. And this is what I found about talking about pain in general, is it resonates really quickly, but it also can turn people off really quickly, because they start getting that, like, who do you think you are talking to me about, about all the things that are going wrong in my life? Like, you don't know me, and so you can catch their attention with pain, and you can say, hey, look, is your kid struggling in school? And then you start presenting that solution. You start presenting that Band-Aid.
So because y'all are, action packed, and like you said, because when you want to look for the kids that are going to, generate the interest, have you had a better luck reaching out to them through YouTube, or reaching out to the parents through, Facebook, Instagram, or pretty decent mix, or kind of hard to tell?
So it's a combination of the two. I think that they work. I think it's a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of thing. I think that if I were to take either one of those elements out, there would still be some success with it. But at the same time, I think that the fact that both of them are happening simultaneously makes it bigger than the sum of the parts. And what we like to do is, we'll have it where kids are in videos, kids that we teach. And so the kids who are seeing those videos, they're actually seeing their friends, they're seeing their classmates in those videos. And so what we're doing is, kind of within this tiny little microcosm, we're creating little micro celebrities. It's kind of like when I was a kid, I went to the 1995 Atlanta Braves World Series game, and through some, I don't know, miracle, my parents were able to pull off. We had seats for game 1 of the 95 World Series right behind the Braves dugout. And I grew up in Atlanta, so it was the first row behind the Braves dugout. So I was in the newspaper. I was in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution the next day. And you would have thought the next day when I walked into school, you would have thought I built that school. I mean, it was like, and I didn't do anything, but just the fact that I was featured in something adds, just incredible credibility to those people, and by extension to that, that organization. And so by saying, hey, look, here's your friends and they're out here doing this, nobody wants to miss out on the fun stuff, and so I think that, if you're a business owner and you're running, and you're running marketing campaigns, any chance that you have to showcase your customers and talk about their successes and position them in a way where they are kind of the hero of the story. Cause that's the biggest problem, and that's what I see so much. Cause a lot of what I do hinges on kind of this framework of storytelling. Is companies come into these marketing campaigns and they want to talk about, well, our product does this, and here's the features, and it's better, and it's faster, and it's cheaper, and it does all that stuff. And people don't care, and especially when you start getting into, well, we were founded in 1978, and my grandfather founded the company, and he passed it on to my dad, and my dad, like, I don't care, it doesn't help me solve my problem. But when you start saying, hey, look, this is Jim was 20 pounds overweight. He came in and he worked with us, and we've got this system that's worked over and over for people just like Jim and just like you, and here's what Jim's doing now. His life is better. His wife is happier. His kids, he's out playing in the yard with his kids. We can do the same thing for you if you're interested. My company is, looks great in that light, but I'm not talking about my credentials as a trainer. I'm not talking about, really anything that I do. I'm showcasing my client and their success. And that's a far more effective, marketing campaign than just, here's how great I am.
Yeah, we were working with a client not long ago that, their website was full of stock pictures. And that was one suggestion, is like, make it personal. People want to know who they're dealing with. They want to feel like there's that personal connection with, somebody they know, or like you said, somebody they could aspire to be eventually.
That's right. And I always tell people, when you're writing your website, or if you have, if you hire me to write your website with any client that I work with, it starts with really just a 2-hour, probably at least 2-hour sit down conversation. Just tell me about your business. Tell me about what you do, just so that I can hear these people talk and get a sense of how it is that they speak, because you have to have that authentic voice. And, if you're writing, you have to be able to capture the way that you communicate, verbally, and translate that to the written word. Otherwise it feels forced. It feels, it feels stilted. It doesn't feel like you're actually talking to somebody who's really interested in solving your problems.
Yeah. Right. So you mentioned Instagram earlier. We think of, YouTube, Facebook, but you know, I like Instagram. I go over there because I just like to look at the pictures. It's not as much, uh, not as much of the other stuff that goes on like on Facebook, the drama part. Let's put it
Yep.
that way, nicely.
Yep.
But so I like to go over there. But being a buyer over there, you know, yeah, I don't know if I really look at it like that or not. But you know, have you been able to tell that you have Instagram has worked well for you?
So yes and no. And again, it kind of goes back to, let's take it to something that's going to be usable for, you know, for the people who are listening, which is, I always tell people, you need to live at the intersection of what you are good at and where your people spend their time. And if you are, you know, if you are advertising and your business primarily serves CEOs and executives and, you know, C-suite individuals and, you know, in some sort of consulting capacity or some sort of, you know, business to business kind of capacity, you can be on Instagram, you can be on Facebook, you can be on YouTube, but you need to spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, right? Like you need to understand what these platforms are for and what people's mindsets are when they're on these platforms. And if, you know, if you're serving, you know, parents in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who are, you know, who are taking lots of pictures of their kids and, you know, they're kind of involved in that, like my kids doing stuff, like they're on Instagram and, you know, maybe, you know, a few years older than that, they're spending time on Facebook. And so, and then, you know, Instagram is a place where, you know, if you're comfortable on camera, if you're comfortable taking pictures of yourself and recording yourself on video and, you know, and that kind of thing, then, and that's who your client is, then that's a perfect intersection for Instagram, you know? And so for my business, where the kids that we serve are largely between the ages of 5 and 12, which means their parents are probably between the ages of 28 and 45, you know, I mean, like that's a pretty Instagram, you know, heavy crowd. And so for us, it makes a lot of sense to be on Instagram in tandem with, you know, parent sees us in Instagram stories, there's a Facebook ad running, kid goes to YouTube, they see, you know, that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden they're going like, God, I can't get away from this.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, the nice thing, like I said, somebody else had brought up YouTube and it was kind of the forgotten platform for me. So this last week or so, I've been really pushing to get stuff out there. And, but what is translated from that is that video clips that I've been using fit very nicely into Instagram as well. And so that is, I guess that's the next question is because it, well, let me ask the question and then I'll tell you what's happened with me. But do you see a difference between videos and stills, or do you even do stills? I guess since y'all are kind of action.
Yes. So I don't necessarily see, I don't see a difference to the point that I could say like videos are better than stills or stills are better than videos. I think it has to do with your skill at both or at each, you know, and how effective are you, you know, with stills, you're placing a lot of weight and a lot of responsibility on the caption of the post. You know, if I see a still, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to see, okay, what did they write about this? What did they want to tell me about this? So to some degree with a still, I'm more in charge of the narrative, you know, because I can sit down and if I'm an effective writer, then that's a great way for me to leverage Instagram as a platform. If maybe I'm not comfortable on video, but that's where my clients are and I want to write, you know, maybe I'm taking compelling pictures or using compelling pictures or, you know, whatever it is, but then I'm writing long captions for each post, you know, and then I'm going into the comments and I'm engaging with all the people who are leaving comments. You know, that's how I would use Instagram as a writer. But another thing that you brought up that I think is worth, you know, is worth repeating and worth kind of diving into a little bit is kind of the difference between the videos that you're producing and how they kind of work really well on Instagram and wanting to get stuff on YouTube. To me, the fundamental difference there is how long the content lasts and how long it's useful and effective. If you went in, or if somebody went in and you got a notification on your phone right now that somebody had liked one of your Instagram posts from 2015, you would be like, what are they doing looking at my posts from 2015? You know, like they are digging deep.
Yeah, right.
You know, you really wanted to to find some dirt on me or something,
Right.
But if somebody goes in and watches a YouTube video, that maybe has some timeless advice or some, sort of evergreen, content, and those posts continue to grow and grow and grow. YouTube is a really powerful brand building tool, over the long term. And that's why, people always say YouTube is either the second, or depending on how you look at it, the biggest search engine on the internet right now, where people are going in and it's, how do I blank? How do I change the oil in my 2014 F-150? And like, there's 6 videos and the cream rises to the top. And probably the top video is from 2015, when that truck had just come out and people are watching it. And I think for folks like us who are in kind of this client services thing, and we find ourselves answering the same questions over and over again from our clients, it's, hey, here's this video that's going to be really valuable content for a lot of people, because I know that, 9 out of my last 10 clients have asked me this specific question. So I'm going to make some content about it. I'm going to write a really good description on YouTube, and I'm going to let that content do some of the legwork for me over the next 2 or 3 or 4 or however many years, and people watch that video, and then there's a link to your, to your website, or, there's links to other videos that you've done that might have similar topics. You can create a library on YouTube that'll do you a lot of favors for a really long time.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point. It gets back to asking the right questions and then listening, when we have prospects or customers, because then we can gear, if they've got that question, probably somebody else out there has it too. But what I was going to say is that, so I made these little short clips and just threw one out because we just been kind of messing around with it and don't really know how to operate or the best messaging, but we just pulled out some audio, put together, a couple pics, couple still pictures that we had taken and put it out there. And instantly we had more activity on that post than, we'd had on a couple where it was just the stills and a message with the, and, again, it gets back to the writing skills. Maybe the copy in those other ones wasn't that hot, but I was just very surprised that, this little 1-minute video clip that is basically, it's a video format, but it's more just moving pictures that it kind of blew up on Instagram. So, it was a pleasant surprise. And so, we're going to be working a lot more with that, because here again, it transcends something you can use on YouTube as well. It's not that long, but if we can pick up a few hits off of it, that's what we're looking for. So then that kind of leads to the next thing is, so there's a difference between vanity likes and actually attracting customers. And, luckily it was a very cheap lesson I learned a long time ago. A guy said, hey, I can sure help you out, generate some traffic, some likes, some interest, blah, blah, whatever, and luckily, like I said, it didn't cost me a lot of money. I said, yeah, go ahead. We'll give it a try. Well, they were all from, basically it's all from Africa and all from Asia. Right. I guess they have like farms over there where they got people just sitting around liking posts. And so the conversation that we end up having with him after that is, that's awesome to have 1,000 likes on this deal. But unfortunately, there was not one of those people that was a buyer. So there's a huge difference in vanity traffic and, attracting buyers.
That's exactly right. And so when I work with clients, I have this 3-phase framework, and it's if you imagine a 3x3 grid, the bottom phase is what I call traction. And that's where, and it's on my shirt. So our three phases are traction, action, and tribe. So the bottom phase is that traction phase. And it's, what am I saying? Who am I saying it to? And what do I actually have for sale? What can I put a barcode on that says, I have this to sell you, it costs this much, and here's what you get for it, And so we get really clear on who it is that we're talking to, what it is that we have for sale, and then how we're different from everybody else in that marketplace, right? Because if you don't have any competition, I say this all the time, if you don't have any competition, if you're the first one into a market, you're either about to be broke or you're about to be a billionaire. Right. Because if nobody's in that market, chances are really, really good it's a bad idea.
Exactly.
Then when you get to that second level, the action phase is, okay, now that we've got this message, how are we going to actually put it into action? How are we going to put it into the world in a way that's effective, not just for driving likes and traffic and website visits and comments, or because I can't take comments to the bank, you know?
Right,
So
exactly.
when I take a bag full of comments up to SunTrust, they say I'm not interested, right?
Right.
So if
Good point.
if I go first into, all right, well, I'm going to start driving a bunch of traffic. And that's what a lot of people do. They start a business and they go, well, I'm going to start an Instagram account and a Facebook and a YouTube channel. And you go, okay, well, that's great, but you're a dog chasing cars right now, because what in the world are you going to do with that traffic once you catch it? Where are you pointing it? You know, because if you've got a lot of eyeballs, but you don't have anywhere to send them and you don't have any way to convert those eyeballs into customers, then those eyeballs are pointless. They don't do anything for you. So I start with, what do our platforms look like? You know, what does our website look like? Do we have any landing pages? What's the organization, the structure of our sales sequence and our customer journey, so that they go, okay, this is the first thing I'm going to offer you. Here's the next thing. Here's the next thing. You know, what do our social platforms actually look like? And then the next phase is, how do we sell them this stuff? You know, are we doing this on the phone? Are they buying it online? Are we, you know, meeting over Zoom? Are we writing letters to each other? You know, how are we buying this stuff? And then once I've got my website, I've got my offer, I've got everything all set up, and I'm confident in my ability to convert sales. Now, yeah, turn on that faucet. But before that, you know, if you try to fill up that bucket's got all kinds of holes in it, you know, and you're never going to fill that bucket up. You're going to be constantly working, you know, so build the systems, build the structures, put those in place before you ever start driving people to it.
Right. Which gets back to a good point is, you know, you need a roadmap of where you are today, where you really need to go. And there's a lot of infrastructure that's wrapped around that. You know, it gets back to your website, your Facebook business page, your LinkedIn business page. You know, you really have to have all that pretty solid, you know, because you don't want somebody, you finally attract that guy and he goes over to one of your pages and it looks like junk or there's nothing there. And so that, you know, for myself, I'll say that turns me off if it's not done right. So
that's right. Yeah. You got to see that there's something there, or decide that that's not the platform for you. You know, it's totally okay to say, hey, look, I'm not on Instagram. I don't have a business page on Instagram. Everything that I do happens on Facebook, or happens on LinkedIn, or happens via email, or happens, you know, however it happens. But to your point, you know, if they show up on your LinkedIn page, you know, and your business LinkedIn page is, you know, the standard logo that's there before you even upload your own logo, and it's got the title of your page, and there's never been a post, or, you know, it's like testing 1, 2, 3, you know, like
right.
And they go, this guy doesn't have a clue what he's doing, and this is a ghost town, you know? So if you're not going to take the time to set that platform up correctly and actually tend to your field, you know, and, you know, and plant and harvest and that kind of stuff, then, you know, why buy the land?
Yeah. Well, that's another good point that I meant to make earlier, that you were talking about, you know, when we're talking about the kids watching the videos and bugging mom and dad, and you know, there's some time frame in between there before they purchase, is that, you know, with the digital age, we seem to get ahead of ourselves and we want to go straight from planting the seed to harvesting, and sometimes all in the same minute, you know, and like you said, you know, there's a cultivation in between, but that can be 8 to 12 touches is what we need to count on, you know, before we close a sale. And if you do anything less than that, you're just lucky, but it's not something that, you know, unless you're a high pressure in the home salesman where, you know, you just don't leave until you get a check. Typically that doesn't happen. You're going to have to drip and hold their attention over time.
There was a concept that was explained to me not a long time ago that I feel like applies to everything. I teach it with the kids that I teach and with marketing clients, and then I apply it with my own, which is this idea of an emotional bank account, right? And that anytime I'm asking for something, anytime I'm, you know, pushing for a sale, or you know, with the kids that I work with, anytime I'm correcting them or disciplining them, or, you know, even with my own kids, when I'm, you know, when I'm correcting them or reprimanding them for something, then that is a withdrawal from that bank account, you know, and that's okay as long as I've built up the capital to make that withdrawal. And, and so if it's, if I'm running a marketing campaign and I'm working with clients, I want to contribute. I want to add value. I want to make deposits in that bank account so that when I look at them and I say, hey, look, I've got this new offer, this thing that I'm selling now, then they go, I know Kyle, I like him. I trust him, and I'm going to believe that he has my best interests at heart because he's shown me over and over and over again that he has my best interests at heart, and yes, it's a withdrawal for him to ask for this from me, but I trust him and he can do that because he's given so freely in the past,
Right.
and so when a lot of people think about running, particularly going back to like digital advertising, when they think like, all right, I'm going to throw some money onto Facebook or onto YouTube or, whatever the platform is, they think that it has to be this transactional, I have this for sale. Do you want to buy it? And I'm going to ram that message down your throat by throwing my ad budget at you. Here's what I have for sale. Do you want it? Do you want it? Do you want it? Where it doesn't have to be that, it can be, hey, look, I'm going to throw a little bit of money at this helpful, I made a helpful video on how to X, Y, or Z. I'm going to put it on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, and I'm going to throw some money at it. I'm going to show it to a lot of the people who are in my ecosystem. I'm going to let them see it. I'm going to let them build their trust with me, and then I'm going to, we're getting a little bit complex here, but now I'm going to build retargeting audiences of people who have watched that video. And I'm going to say, hey, look, here's another video. Here's another helpful tip. And then after that, I've got people who have watched 2 videos and they've got, just the best feeling in the world about me. And then I go, hey, I've got this thing for sale and I help people just like you if you're interested in that. Right. And they go, well, sure. Absolutely. I'm interested in that.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And then, like you said, we could do another episode on, this kind of the same thing with content and pushing out emails. I feel that, you just don't want to push an email out that says, hey, this is Roy, I've got this service. When can I sign you up, or how fast can you get me some money? I mean, we have to build that value. And, we talk about the same thing, provide them something that's useful. You have to keep their attention by providing that usefulness until they're ready to buy or till you can ask for the buy. So
that's it.
Well, Kyle, we're gonna have to wrap it up for today. I'd love to have you back on. You've been an awesome guest, and like I said, I got a ton of questions. I could sit here for hours and hours, and so we'll get you back on. Love to kind of go a little bit deeper into this the digital advertising and marketing part. But before we let you go, what is one tool that you use, either a tool, habit, ritual that you use either in your personal life or in business that you just don't think you could do without every day?
All right. It's a weird one. I'm going to guess that you've never gotten this one before.
Okay.
And I was thinking about because when you prepped me for this question, I was like, all right, what do I use every day? The one thing that I use more often than anything else is graph paper. I don't remember the last time that I wrote on lined paper. I'm real analog, pen to paper on almost everything. But I exclusively buy graph paper because I'm making, charts and boxes and stuff like that. So I use graph paper, and the one thing I'll do, I've got just a composition notebook, the notebooks that look like a cow on the front. But it's got graph paper in it.
Interesting.
And
so you're not an engineer background, are you?
No, not at all.
No? Okay. No, and the reason I ask, I used to work with the guy frequently, and that's all he used was graph. He was an engineer by trade. Every note that I got from, and this is back in the old days of fax, but every time I get a fax, I couldn't read the words on it because all the graph paper. It's
on graph paper. Yeah. So I love graph paper, and, to actually make it a useful tool for me, what I do is, every night before I go to bed, I'm not a big like morning routine or evening routine kind of guy. I'm not up before the sun, drinking my mushroom coffee and meditating for 20, I'm not that guy. But I do write down the 3 things that I want to accomplish the next day. So I go into every day, 7 days a week. I go, and it could be professional. It could be personal. It could be, I'm going to take my daughter on a date. It could be, whatever it is. 3 things that I'm going to get done the next day. And those are my non-negotiables for that day. So if things come up and it's, I gotta sacrifice one of those 3 things to make this other thing happen, I know that that's a no for me. So it's 3 things that are my non-negotiables for the next day. And I figure if I can get 3 really solid things done every day, I'll be all right.
Yep. Yeah, that's an awesome answer. Yeah, I haven't heard that one and probably won't for a while. So on the graph paper. So if you don't mind, tell everybody not only how they could get a hold of you, for the digital marketing, but tell a little bit about the martial arts studio as well.
Yeah, so the martial arts school, it's called the Dojo. Real simple. Dojo is just a gym, a place where you train. So the
Okay.
brand is the Dojo. We're in Atlanta, a little bit north of Atlanta. We've got about 6 locations, so we're
Oh,
kind of
wow.
all over the place up there. Um, but yeah, that's the martial arts school. But for for folks who are listening to this, my primary website is guidepostmarketing.com. And what I do there is really just help business owners of all shapes and sizes get really clear on their message, on who it is that they're trying to talk to, and then once that message is really dialed in and clear in a way that their customers respond to it, and that their ears perk up, we talk about how to get it out into the world, whether that's on your website or in email campaigns or social media or paid ads or whatever it is. It starts with that foundation of a story based message, positioning the customer as the hero and your company as the guide who can help them solve their problems. That's kind of the crux of the messaging, and we create that messaging so that it really resonates with your customers, and then we put it out in the world, and businesses see just really solid results. And it's something that you can, it never goes out of style, no matter what platform you're using. You can always tailor it to however you want to do things, and that's what I help folks do.
Yeah. Kyle, we appreciate you being here with us, giving us your time today. It's been very helpful. A lot of great tips, a lot of things to think about. And so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Again, this is Roy with the Business of Business podcast. We look forward to talking to you next time.
Thanks, Roy.